Last time I did this, the track just broke in half. And that's just with 12 volts, and it's not even on the ground. Right, let's see what happens. This is a 12 volt test to see if this thing turns. It turned. The tracks have been the biggest, not nightmare, but worry about the whole thing. Working out what to make them out of, whether they should be metal, whether they should be plastic, whether they should be wood, whether they should be rubber. And of course, you can't just go and buy these things. You just can't buy them exactly the right size for what you need. And even if you can get hold of them, they cost so much money. Anyway, my solution. You can see one here, it's all kind of been stuck at the moment. I can't really move this around. This is now a looped track, almost ready to actually go on. It's got a little bit more finishing to do. But in essence, what it is this. They're made up of slats. And these slats have got holes put in them. Now, you will see in one of the other videos how I fabricate this. But in effect, we've got the webbing, which goes into these holes. This is then clamped or glued together to create this kind of sandwich. And then the next one is done so on and so forth and whatever. On the outside, we've got this kind of little affair which goes on the outside, which then stops the track from running off the wheels, the idler wheel at the back and the bogie. And then in the centre of the track, you see I've got one here, we'll have the tooth gear. And that tooth gear has been 3D printed. That will then be screwed and glued onto this via the two holes, locating holes here. That whole assembly should be strong enough to create a track that won't just rip to pieces. Now, obviously, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice at the back of the track, we've got obviously all these nuts and bolts. There will be like a rubber, well, we're not going to use rubber, we're going to use plastic. We're going to use a plastic pad that will sit, in effect, kind of above that. So the nuts and bolts won't be hitting the ground. Otherwise, any floor this drive over will just rip it to pieces. Be great for outside, but primarily this will probably be driven inside. So we need some sort of pads that will protect the floors. It will also allow a bit more of a slip coefficient. So the idea being that, remember, as the track turns, it slides. So if this material that's put on here has got slightly less friction, it will allow the track to slide. Now, again, you might think, well, hang on a minute, less friction means you won't get any grip. You will, because this is very low speed, high torque. So it's not as if it's going to be accelerating so quickly that the friction is going to break. I'm fairly convinced it won't be a problem. But will it work? Will the 3D printing survive? Will it just snap in half? Will the tracks just, they break them? They are just made of laminates of wood. Will they break? Will the bolts just rip out? Should I have done it in metal? Problem is the weight. Even this track made up of 40 links is a significant amount of weight. So if we were to do this in metal, would the motors even drive the tracks? Right, so as you can see, I'm mocking up one of the tracks, and I've got these jigs here. And right, so I'm cutting rubber for the tracks for the T-1. I've been experimenting with loads of different things. So obviously the obvious thing you would think of is one of those. It will cut through it, but every single cut, we get halfway through the mat and then the blade goes blunt. So that's going to be expensive, so forget that. I thought about jigsaw, cutting it with a jigsaw. It's good, but it does chop it a little bit. Edges aren't very good. So I then thought about this little gadget, little circular saw, and the edges are absolutely spot on. They're absolutely perfect. So I've made up a little jig to cut it. Little trick, soapy water. So loads of soapy water on it. because the soapy water helps this slide through and cut, and then just go straight across.